Burkina Faso, Ghana, Ivory Coast and Togo have carried out a joint military operation to counter increased attacks by insurgent groups in parts of West Africa. Almost 6,000 troops were deployed in the borderlands between Burkina Faso and other three countries under a security cooperation deal the countries agreed to in 2017 to prevent ISIS and Al Qaeda linked violence spreading from the Sahel region. The 5-day operation led to the arrest of 300 suspects and the seizure of weapons, ammunition, vehicles, drugs and a large amount of material to make improvised bombs. Groups linked to Al Qaeda and ISIS have expanded their reach into the Sahel region in recent years, destabilizing Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. They've made occasional incursions south, including into Ivory Coast and Togo. The Burkina Faso government is facing a public outcry over its perceived inability to stop the militants, who in November carried out the most devastating attack on local security forces in recent years. For some analysis, we're now joined by Williams Assanvo, who's a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Williams, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How significant is this coming together by these four nations in this joint operation?
I think it's an important initiative that was put in place. As you rightly pointed it out, the joint military operation that was conducted last week was the fourth in a series of joint operations conducted within the framework of the Accra Initiative, that is a cooperation mechanism that was launched in 2017 between by Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Togo in response to growing insecurity linked to violent extremism in the region. So the joint operation was, I think, is something that needs to be replicated again. Maybe the negative side of this operation is the fact that it's not a permanent one. So after the operation has been conducted, it's not sure that the result will be sustained.
What are the likelihoods of it yielding some kinds of success, even if it's short term, given that, you know, the French troop withdrawal was quite significant, I guess, in the fight against these militants?
I think it's maybe worth clarifying one thing. The French troops have not withdrawn per se from the Sahel. Actually, they withdrew from some position they had in northern Mali, but they still remain in Gao, the largest city in northern Mali. And this is actually a redeployment of the Balkan force, French force. And they are trying to refocus their activities in what is referred to as the three-border area, the border between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. So it was not a withdrawal per se. And even if there was a withdrawal, where the French was operating is a different area from the one we are currently talking about, where the joint operation was held. And French is not operating in that area.
But these militants,
so there is,
but these militants have shown that they are willing to move further south, haven't they? So it could create a vulnerability.
Yes, actually, even with the presence of the French, those groups have already managed to move southwards and to establish some camps in the south of Burkina Faso, the border with Cote d'Ivoire, the border with Benin, for instance. So I'm not sure that the presence of French troops have changed or have prevented that from happening. So maybe if they withdraw, probably the situation could worsen definitely that's something that an hypothesis that we can put forward. But their presence have definitely not prevented those groups from spilling over or from expanding the operation geographically speaking.
The challenge of militants is not new, and sadly what happens is often when you push them back, they regroup and they come back later. So it's almost waves of militancy and insurgency. What might be a permanent solution? Because one gets a sense that military operations only deal with the problem for now.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think the military and security action is one that is necessary when a problem has become a security one, as the one we are currently experiencing. But this action is not enough. There is definitely a need to mix it with other responses that will touch upon some vulnerabilities in terms of socioeconomic conditions, in terms of governance in border or in remote areas, also in terms of strengthening the mechanisms to deal with local conflict. And there is also a need to deal with the weak state presence or even the state absence in those areas. Porous borders is also something that needs to be dealt with, as well as the inability of states to provide communities with some of their basic needs, security, healthcare, education, justice, water, just to name some of them. So there is definitely a need to move from a predominantly military and security action.
Could this mean actually sitting down and negotiating with militants?
That's something that I think we need not to exclude. And in countries such as Mali, that's something that has been discussed. There have been several national dialogues that recommended to open a dialogue with some of those groups, particularly the groups managed by Malian citizens. So this is something that is being discussed. That's not obviously completely agreeable by everyone within societies, but that's something that needs to be considered depending on the context.
Is it clear what these ISIS and Al Qaeda linked militants desire and want? In other parts of the continent, they talk about caliphates and they talk about the imposition of strict an interpretation of a strict Sharia law. Is this what they talk about? Is this what they say in the region as well?
Yes, that's something that is in the rhetoric that they use. Their willingness to impose some kind of, a certain vision or a certain way of living their religion. They also usually express their opposition to what they consider occupants, particularly France, and also governments that collaborate with France that are considered apostate. So this is definitely a rhetoric that they are using in West Africa. But now it's not always clear what they are looking for, what they want to achieve, whether they have a political or a religious agenda. It's not always clear, and that's actually something that needs to be put on the table if the negotiation, the dialogue with them has to be envisaged. And I think it's also important maybe to make a difference between the rhetorics and what they actually want and what they are able to accept within the framework of a dialogue.
We were speaking to a specialist the other day, I think with Oxfam, if I remember correctly, She was describing how children in particular, young people, were being abducted and coerced to join these groups. Is this a pattern that we're seeing across the region? And also, what makes it appealing for some people who join of their own free will?
Yes, actually, the use of children by armed groups is something that has been observed in Mali particularly, and those children have been recruited in armed groups and also in jihadist group. And this has also been observed to some degree in the Lake Chad Basin, in the northeastern part of Nigeria particularly, with the Boko Haram group recruiting children, young girls, to use them as kamikazes. Apart from those two contexts, we have not witnessed these dynamics in other parts of the region. And to answer your question, why those groups have appeal? I think those groups have appeal because they manage to take advantage, to manipulate or to exploit existing vulnerabilities in areas where they implant themselves. And vulnerabilities at the level of individuals or at the level of community. And they do that through persuasion, through violence, through negotiation, or through manipulation. And they have managed to manipulate specifically local conflict when formal conflict resolutions mechanisms are not working, where state is weak or absent, as I mentioned it earlier, and where the state is unable to provide communities with basic needs. So they also managed to exploit governance problem, which provide breeding ground to those groups. So I think there is a wide range of vulnerabilities that those groups have managed to exploit and to make them appealable to people, to communities.
Williams Assanvo, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us on the program, and your thoughts, insights, greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, my dear brother. Okay, so that's Williams Assanvo joining us there, talking to us about this joint operation. Burkina Faso, Ghana, Ivory Coast and Togo came together to try and deal with the militant insurgency in the region.